closer to the front. If you want to sneak out, you can still sneak out, but it would be great to start with a full pews at the front. And that just sends people out, obviously. I've already done that, so. I think they heard. Can people move to the front if you're going to join the AGM? That would be great, closer to the front. It helps us up at the front here to know that we're reaching people. That would be great. Thank you, Katie. That would be lovely. Okay, guys, I'm going to start. Carolyn, our secretary, is urging people to sign the attendance sheets that are circulating. There's one on your right and your left going around. If people could, if you've been missed on the attendance sheet, please just hold up your hand when we get to the end here. This is kind of our soft launch of the AGM. Here. Okay. Do I need to talk like this?
I guess the speaker's not coming this way.
Okay.
Is the speaker to come this way? I always listen. Maybe I should go down.
If it turns out like that, then you can go down. If it works better for you to sit down below, you can. Okay. We're going to get started here. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to those of you in the sanctuary. We have a nice crowd today. Kind of a bit of a so-so day in terms of weather, so it's lovely that everybody made their way out. We do have an online component to this. I don't know, I'm just going to look over there at the table for our online component. Do we have people who've signed in?
No, but Jeff is going to post it in the YouTube chat.
Perfect, okay, so that people could join the Zoom. Okay. My secretary is leaving my side, which is most disturbing to me. So we are passing around the clipboard to get attendance from folks in the sanctuary. There is an online component to this. We'll talk a little bit about that. There's some functional details to look after. There is childcare for anybody who's got kids, and I think you've already taken care of that from the looks of things if you have kids and need help. I would also point out that the annual general report from 2022 has been available for at least a week or 10 days, and there's a link to that on our website. There were a few printed copies. It's a long document that were at the back of the church last week and this week, so there aren't paper copies for everyone, but I hope that everyone has looked at this important document. We're not going to review everything in detail today. We're kind of doing a summary view of the goings-on of the church for 2022 and looking forward to 2023. I just want to note that we are recording this AGM on YouTube, and also there is a Zoom call that is happening at the same time where folks who are online are going to be able to participate in the voting, should they care to do that. Lauren Scott is looking after the polling, and Jeff King is helping folks, our support for getting online and so on. His phone number was on the opening slide there if people are still needing support and my email address for getting the Zoom link if there are folks at home. So these things, Carolyn is taking the minutes. It will be recorded. The Zoom call will also record our votes and so on. So there'll be a little bit of this clunky hybrid kind of a thing. We're going to try it out. Last year at the AGM, we anticipated, that was only online on Zoom, and this year we anticipated that we would be able to, oh, there it is. Sorry. Okay. 902-817-4179 is Jeff's number if you're having trouble. For the folks who are online, they will be able to see it online. It's just not showing on our screen here. So we recognize that there is a portion of our membership that worships online with us, so we're trying to do this hybrid thing to support people to participate to the degree that they're able on both these channels. So it's going to mean that we're going to do a little bit of communicating here in the sanctuary, and then we're also going to communicate through the chat on the YouTube and the polling on Zoom, and Lauren and Jeff are going to help with that. So we're asking everyone who is online and wants to participate in the voting that they would ask for the Zoom link to be sent out to them. And if you are online, could you please also indicate by putting in the chat your name so that we have people's attendance online as well. So Lauren will be sharing the results of the Zoom poll numbers, and we'll be doing a kind of votes here in the sanctuary as well. We'll add those up to make sure that we've tallied things properly. And I'll have to check with Lauren and Jeff periodically to make sure that if there's comments coming on the chat that we pick those up. I'd ask if you are in the sanctuary that you fully participate in the sanctuary goings on, and we have a microphone that we can pass around so that folks can speak and ask questions, and we'll leave the chat for those folks who are actually unable to be here in person. I'd like to thank Lauren and Nick and Jeff and the whole AV team are assisting us with this new way of meeting, and I thank you for your patience as we work our way through it. Thank you to those members of council who have joined us here today, and just a few notes. Again, if you're having technical trouble, please reach out to Jeff. You can chat with Lauren in the Zoom chat as well, and I'm going to let those folks sort that out unless I get a kind of a help kind of notice from them sitting over there. So Lauren and Jeff, are we okay to proceed so far with what we've got on? Okay, so we're on to the agenda slide. Our agenda this morning is going to include an opening prayer, remarks, and an opening motion. We'll have the presentation of the 2022 financial report and the 2023 budget, a presentation of the nominations report, and we'll set the next date for the AGM in 2024. We'll have a few closing remarks from Tim Rohraback, the incoming chair of BUC Council, and if all goes well, I'm hoping we can have you out within an hour or so. I'm going to go to the next slide, please. So this watercolor painting is recently resurrected by Katie. I think she found it she said, in a dusty closet. It is like an artist's rendering of this facility before it was built. So the year would be 1950 something, I'm not sure. 61. And it's just, to me, it's a lovely, luminous kind of a watercolor. And what I like about this picture is that it sort of represents in some ways the dreams of our ancestors, our spiritual ancestors, not that far from us, some folks, and it represents in some ways how we're living out their dream today. So I just include that slide as sort of the themes. And I'm going to ask Matt if you wouldn't mind coming up.
It's written down. That's all I'm going to say. It's right here. And this is a poem, though. Katie really introduced me to John O'Donohue, and I really love this poem, and I thought this would be a nice grounding for us as we gather for our annual meeting on the theme of the service today. If you didn't join us, it's called For a New Beginning. So I invite you to just center yourself, take a deep breath. Just connect with that divine source that's the wellspring from which our life flows. And hear these words. In out-of-the-way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? then the delight. When your courage kindled and you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you. And all the people said, Amen.
Thank you, Matt. I neglected to introduce myself when I was looking at my notes. My name is Andrea McQuillan, and I am the outgoing chair of BUC Council, and I'm pleased to be chairing this meeting today. Thank you for coming. We're going to start with our opening motion, and in the interest of time, we usually pull an omnibus motion together to begin the meeting and group together the usual opening motions. So, and I have done some pre-work on this so that we have some folks who know that they're going to make the motion and second the motion. So the motion, I'm just looking at Jill, is moved by Jill Wilson and seconded by Jocelyn, who's in the back. One, that Bedford United Church formally constitute the 2023 Annual General Meeting on March 26th, and that the meeting is now open. That Bedford United Church formally adopt the minutes of the AGM held on March 20th, 2022, as printed and circulated in the Annual General Meeting Report. 3, that Bedford United Church adopt the 2023 Annual General Meeting Reports as printed and circulated, apart from the financial statements and the nominations report, which will be considered separately in this agenda. So we have a motion made and a seconder. Could everyone please vote yes or no on the motion to open the meeting? For those of you on Zoom or YouTube, the poll should have popped up on your Zoom screen. So we're voting yes or no to open the meeting. A show of hands for those who vote yes to open the meeting here in the hall. And do I see any against the motion? Have we got anybody online participating? Okay. All yes. The meeting is now open. Thank you. That's how the votes are going to go during this morning's proceedings. We have, I think, altogether 6 motions, including the opening and closing motions. I'm going to go to the next slide now. So I'd just like to offer a short contemplation on the idea of stewardship. A lot of us think of stewardship as a churchy kind of word for fundraising, but it's more than that. I have at the front a definition from Merriam-Webster. Stewardship is the act of taking care or of managing something. It is an action. It is an action of taking care for something outside of us. As members of BUC, we are all stewards because we care. We act in ways that express care in many ways as numerous as we are individuals. And I would say at this time in 2023, it is important that we all think of ourselves as stewards of BUC. Whether we have a light or a heavy load, we all have our hand at an oar. Next slide. This is a little bit of me trying to finger paint something, but really what I'm trying to refer to is Katie's notion that she introduced of episodic dreaming. In terms of we've sort of talked about what we were, who dreamed it, and then dreaming the new thing. And so if we think about the folks who got together to make the Presbyterian church that was not at this site before BUC was at our site where we are now, they dreamed our current facility that we are in now. And then there's another kind of a dreaming, I would say, that is that we are nigh on the time for another dream. I'm not suggesting that it is all just about the facility, but I'm trying to say that we're moving forward in this way. Keeping with this contemplation on stewardship, I'd like to offer the thought that we often consider stewardship to be a maintenance kind of activity. If I follow the book, the procedures, if I pay attention to and check these items off the list as the model stewards have before me, if I keep things going in a way that they have been executed in the past with success, I will manage this. Won't I? In stable times, times of health, ease, peace, and plenty, this could be a successful strategy. But in 2023, for many reasons, stewardship must be more than this. Stewardship today is doing research, accepting new information, probing trends, looking outside ourselves, making and learning from mistakes, trying new things, questioning our relevance, opening ourselves to dreaming and visions. So I was trying to illustrate with this slide the notion of episodic dreaming. And we want to firmly place ourselves in the future and imagine where we find ourselves in great detail. With that vision in sight, what are the actions we need to take right now to make that vision a reality? So this illustration is that our facility that we call our church, our sanctuary, our porch, our parking lot, whether that is from 1932 or 1962, represents embodied dreaming. At a point in time, these places made manifest our dreams and our values. So for lots of reasons that we've been discussing this year, the time is right for another turn at dreaming, at defining a vision, the next manifestation of Bedford United Church. We look forward with optimism and hopefulness. The spirit here is real. What will this spirit make manifest? So many dreams, we could be exhausted pursuing them. Therefore, we need to circle in on something that is common to most of us and aligned with our values. Can we agree on what success looks like for BUC in 5 years? Can we describe it in words? Could we give an elevator speech if we were speaking with funders or supporters? Would we be able to tell them we know the criteria for success and the timeline for achieving that? I think we'll all agree that there's no magic bullet, and we don't have that answer right now, although we have lots of ideas, lots of people we can ask, and lots of people who want to help. And that's what 2023's work will be. It's important that we set realistic expectations for what can be achieved and the timeline in which that we need in order to achieve it. It's not magic, it's effort and thoughtful planning and engagement and communication that will allow us to meaningfully define and set targets and shape activities. So what could hold us back? Lack of money, lack of time, lack of meaningful engagement, lack of energy, other interests or priorities, conflicting priorities between members, spending too much time or effort on minor wins or small decisions that keep us from discussing the most pressing issues, ignoring the details that are consistent with our survival, needing people to be personally invested. And what could propel us forward? Injections of energy, money, strategic partners, creativity, expertise, relevant experience, and talent? Can we attract this? Next slide. So thanks to your generous givings and the recent stewardship campaign, we now have a financial runway that will give us 3 to 4 years to define a sustaining future. The time that we spend defining that vision will need to be purposeful and strategic. As Abe Lincoln said, if I only had an hour to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 45 minutes sharpening my axe. Council has therefore created an ad hoc committee called the Sustaining Futures Committee that is tasked with defining a process that will move us toward a common vision. You can read about this group in the annual report, as with the work of many of the other committees. These dedicated and talented folks that you see on that slide there have volunteered to work over the next year to consult and to define a process that will allow us to define a coherent plan that will make manifest our spirit, our mission, our vision. Who are we? Who do we want to be? And to whom do we want to be that? We need to be thoughtful in the current planning horizon in order to achieve what we dream in the longer horizon. And in order to make that happen, we all need to step up and be stewards, take care of our future. And it won't be just these folks on the slide, but it'll be all of us. So I'm thinking that's enough of a spoiler alert, and that I can turn the lectern over to Janice Reed, our Stewardship Chair, and she's going to give us a presentation regarding the 2022 financial results and the 2023 budget, which focuses a lot on some of the ideas that we just talked about. There will be a motion to approve the financial report after the first part of Janice's presentation, and a second motion to approve the 2023 budget.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Janice Reed. I'm the stewardship lead for the. I'm the team lead for the stewardship. Okay, hold on. How's that? Okay, great, thanks. I feel like I'm about to topple. So I'm Janice Reed. I'm the team lead for the Stewardship Committee, and I took on the team lead over COVID. So this is actually my first time being here in person for an AGM. So if I'm doing anything wrong, I'm sure someone will put up their hand and tell me that I'm supposed to motion this or do this. So we'll see how it goes. The financial statements are, and the notes to the statements are on pages 49 through 54 of the annual report, and I do invite you to refer to them and read them if you haven't already done so. The report is under resources on the website, and there was at least one copy at the back in hard copy. We were trying to limit the number of hard copies we've got, Jeff. You're welcome. I am required to emphasize that the financial statements in the annual report are unaudited and provided for internal use only. They may not meet the needs of a third party since there are no assurances provided with the report. That's the legalese. And now for me. So I was trying to think of how to start this, and then I remembered my mom's words where, if you've got nothing good to say, don't say anything. And perhaps not the best advice for an AGM, though. So I'm going to start with the most impactful observation, and if you bring your focus down to the net income line, BUC experienced a $60,000 loss in 2022, almost double the $32,000 loss that we had in 2021, and that loss was offset by government assistance. And the loss did not occur because of some catastrophic event that we had to pay for. It really does reflect the reduction in givings at the same time that costs are going up. And our analysis indicates that the expenses are very well managed within BUC. The number of emails that go around for a minimal expenditure are actually quite phenomenal and eye-opening when you join the stewardship team. But it's really a result and primarily a revenue issue. You'll notice that the variance between 2021 and 2022 revenue is $55,000, but within that variance, a more accurate reflection of our donations is a drop in 33,000 in donations, and, or sorry, 23,000 less in donations and 10,000 less in fundraising. So that's a $33,000 drop in givings. And I'd also like to point out that gifts to mission and service declined significantly as well, a drop of $10K, and that's a further drop from previous years. So I guess we're learning to find ease in risk, Matt, is going back to your prayer. We can move to the next slide, please. I feel this slide provides a good overview of our financial situation by showing the major lines that have been impacting BUC's operating equity. And equity is what we have less what we owe. And the church's general operating equity at the end of the year is the cumulative effect of all the profits and losses of the years that have been previous. And I do want to highlight that I am focusing on the general operating fund. BUC has two other funds that do have equity, and you can read about them in the annual report. I think it's on page 49. But the general operating contains the general givings, the day-to-day revenue and expenses for the church and its programs. So going back 5 years to 2018, BUC's equity at the end of that year was $3,400 because of a net operating loss in 2018 of about $10,000. The loss in 2019 was $20,000. And then during 2020 and 2021, you'll see all of those significant events that we've been living through. COVID and the great effort that Carol McKnight made to get some government assistance for us, relating to the pandemic. There was a reconciliation with the trust fund and an investment policy statement. And lastly, at the same time that COVID hit us, we were trying to end up the capital project to do with the parking lot and the heat pumps. And so council made a decision that the shortfall was going to be covered by the operating fund. So at 2021, that was the end of our government assistance. And 2022 operations have now reduced BUC's operating equity to $2,500. So I include this slide to just give a high-level perspective that BUC's operating fund has not been robust for quite some time. And it's knowledge of these trends that have added the urgency for our visioning work, for our need to do work towards a sustainable vision. So with those comments, I'm going to table the motion to accept the 2022 financial report and unaudited 2022 financial statements dated December 31st, 2022, as circulated and printed in the 2022 AGM report on pages 49 to 54. And in advance of that vote, I'll open the floor now to any discussion and questions on the financial statements.
Who made it and who seconded it?
Janice is making it, and Tim Rohrbeck is seconding.
Anything online? No? Okay. So do you call for a show of hands, maybe?
Yeah. So the motion is on the floor to accept the 2022 financial report and unaudited 2022 financial statements as circulated and printed in the AGM report, pages 49 to 54. Could we please vote yes or no? So show of hands for yes, we accept the financial statements as brought forward. And any against? I see none. The motion passes, and we're good online. The motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, the next slide, please. So the next topic looks to what financial performance can be anticipated for 2023. And the February stewardship campaign, as Andrea mentioned and as discussed in the annual report, increased the 2023 revenue projections by about $55,000. $20,000 of that relates to increased PAR donations, and $35,000 of that is one-time gifts. So what that means is it could allow BUC to sort of double its horizon to do this planning and implement this kind of work for up to 3 to 4 years, with the recognition that the one-time gifts are going to need to be replicated in the future years, that we're still going to need to keep a handle on expenses, and where there's mandatory increases in expenses, we're going to have to increase our revenues. So there's still moving factors there. It's not a done deal. But we've got an opportunity here that we didn't have in January. I did also want to share that the number of people that responded to the campaign was only about 1 in 3 of our regular donors. And there's many factors that could play into that: the timing of the campaign, the route that we use to communicate, just people's personal circumstances. But it is further data for us to incorporate when we do our visioning work. And I do thank everyone that did participate in the campaign. Your gifts are what are allowing us to do this visioning. And it's the dreaming and designing work for BUC. And rest assured, there is no gift that is too small. The proposed 2023 budget targets a net loss of $27,000. It's the same loss that was approved at last year's AGM. And it's really just based on the higher revenue forecast as a result of the stewardship campaign and a restriction to the climbing expenses where it's possible to do so. And the M&S givings, the mission and service givings, we propose is $60,000. So in advance of Andrea reading out the motion, I'll open the floor to any discussion of the 2023 budget. team's done a great job, haven't they? Yeah. Okay, I guess we're ready for the, nothing online. Yeah.
So Janice is making the motion and Jill is seconding it. That the Bedford United Church accept the 2023 budget as circulated and printed in the 2022 AGM report on page 63. Could we please vote yes or no on the budget? Show of hands for yes. And anyone opposed? And the motion, have we got anybody online? I'll vote yes. The motion passes. Thank you online. Well, it's a testament to the real effort and insight and hard work, detailed work of our stewardship team. And this leads me nicely into my next section, which is to give a little bit of recognition. We want to give some symbolic thanks to the many folks, visible and invisible, who keep BUC moving forward in ways big and small. So this is my opportunity to say thank you to Janice and Carol and Debbie and the stewardship team for their efforts in giving us meaningful financial insight that's critical to our long-term health. Those are for the stewardship team. So I have 36 roses that we're going to symbolically deposit at the front of the church so you can appreciate just how many people have their hands at the oars of BUC. Must call out some folks by name, but our deep appreciation and love goes out to the many who contribute and whom we will not name here today. And I hope that I can convey that in whatever way you're contributing, it's very meaningful to us, and we hold you in our hearts. So we first recognize the stewardship team. I'd like to call out the staff team of Reverend Matt Fillier, Reverend Katie Avon, Caitlin Smithers, Tony Janes, Jennifer Johnson. Thank you, Jennifer, for the AGM report, which is masterful, and I encourage everyone to read it. It is compelling reading. And Brian Skelly. So each one of those gets a rose. Yes, please. 6 of them. So thank you to the staff team for being the daily glue that keeps us all held together. We need that kind of continuity, and it's very helpful. I'd like to recognize Len and Gloria Churchill, who are passing the baton of leading the welcoming team to Kathy and Mike Cox and the many volunteers who greet us every Sunday. I'd like to recognize the whole welcoming team by putting those 2 roses in the vases, please. I'd like to recognize the many dedicated hours spent by the pastoral care team volunteers, particularly Sue Stewart and Mary Louise Mills, who recently retired from the pastoral care team but still contribute in so many ways. Thank you to those many folks. Your names are on the tip of my tongue. I know I'm going to miss somebody. You got me? Okay. Should I say them? You say them?
You say them, and if there's one you forgot.
No, just go.
Barb McLeod.
Barb McLeod. Holly Connor. Oh, you've got to get this right.
Val and Mary.
Donna and Mary.
Sue and Mary Louise.
Sue and Mary Louise.
Hang on.
Carolyn McDonald. Mona Turner.
Sylvia.
Sylvia Branton. I've got that right there. Yeah. Jean McLeod. Margaret Archibald. Joan Tompkins. Morris Tugwell. You're doing really well. Bev Dilstra.
Jocelyn Tingley.
Jocelyn Tingley. Sorry, Lee McLean? Emily McLean? Anyone? Nancy Johnson. Yes, Nancy Johnston. Nancy Wells? No? Congregational care. Yes. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you to the pastoral care team. Two for the, can we put two in? Yes, go ahead, Katie.
That's a group of people that called every single member of the community in the first month of the pandemic. We called every single person on the phone.
Yeah. Yes, wonderful.
It's an incredible group of people that does irreplaceable, amazing work.
Thank you, Katie. Absolutely right. And during a very difficult time, a lot of pressure on that group this last while. We're going to recognize the leaders and volunteers on the very active Christian Development Committee, represented here today. I think that Jan was here. There she is. And Jeff, there. Thank you. Thank you very much. And all of your very active folks on that committee. We never worry about CDC. We'll put a couple in for those guys. Sorry, you're going to get your steps in. We're going to recognize the leaders and volunteers on the Worship and Music Committee and thank Ruth Strubank for her leadership this past year and Val Welsh for stepping in to lead this ministry team on her second retirement from council. Good old Val. I'd like to thank the choir and Generations under the leadership of Wham and Tony Janes for making our services come alive with music, and certainly that was the case today. So could we please put a couple in there for Wham? That would be great. I'd like to thank the Outreach Ministry for the work that they do that connects us with our community in so many ways, and in particular Karen Parnell, who's here, and Jane Wark, and Karen also serves on our trustees. We recognize the trustees as well. They steward our financial assets and support our longevity, so thank you to the trustees as well, too. Yes, thank you. Actually, I feel like Matt should do this one. I'd like to recognize the Ministry and Personnel Committee, who support us in so many ways than the functioning of our church. We would not survive for 1 minute without Jill and that team and their wisdom, patience, guidance, and, dare I say, disciplined approach to all things HR. Yes. We'd be dead already? Dead already. So thank you to M&P. We're going to put one in here for Gary Schmeisser, who is, I don't think he's here today. I want to recognize the Property and Administration Committee that under the leadership of Gary has improved procedures and management that were overdue. Gary is stepping down from volunteer roles as chair of property, and he was also on Ministry and Personnel. He has been everywhere and done everything. And I want to personally thank Gary for his many hours of effort, his insight and drive to improve processes that, if maintained, will serve us well into the future. You will note in the nominating report, I'll note in the nominating report that we have not found anyone to fill Gary's large shoes. So let us thank Gary by putting a rose in there. Did we do? You did it? All right, thank you very much. Way ahead. See, this is why Tim is going to be in charge next. This is good. 2 for Gary. I'd like to call out thanks to the Inclusivity Committee, a very motivated, thoughtful, and active ministry team co-led by Megan Aston, who is also finishing a 3-year term on council as a member at large, but will remain with Inclusivity, co-leading with Nancy Wells. So thank you to Inclusivity, who pepper our... yes, please, go ahead. Yeah, sure, we've still got lots left. I did count them out at one time, and then I think I've lost the math. It's okay. As long as there's enough there at the end. We're good. I want to thank Sarah McLean, who is very nearly a one-man band in the communications role on our ministry team. And I think of the AV team also as supporting both worship and music and the communications team, so doing double duty in a very important way in this in this era that we're in of online and in-person communication. So I want to name the AV team here as well. So a couple go in there for communications and the AV team, please. We have a little group that is kind of a subcommittee of stewardship that does a bunch of fundraising, and a number of people have left, have had to retire more than anything over this last year. Kim Dompierre, Linda Johnston, and Gloria Churchill are each stepping back from that fundraising committee, and Tammy Humphreys, who has been on that committee, is kindly taking the reins. But we have had so much fun with all of the activities that they have put in front of us, and the beautiful boxes of goodies and the art shows and the dinner theater. We are doing one more dinner theater under Kim's direction, and would like to thank those wonderful folks from the fundraising committee for all the work they've done. We're going to put 3 roses in the vase for the 3 chapters of our local UCW and their volunteers.
Andrew, we may need a bigger vase.
It's getting... Bring one of those over. The UCW and their volunteers for the many ways that they enhance and nurture our spiritual life at BUC. And I'm going to recognize one small group ministry, the BUC Ukraine Relief Committee, which really coalesced around a certain issue and continues to find ways to make that social justice initiative relevant to us today. And they have more things coming up, and people are very enthused by that. So I want to thank Bill and Joyce too for the work that they've done to keep that going. I'd like to thank as a whole the departing 2022 council, including Rolly Thompson, who have shown great love, care, and courage in recognizing and working to resolve the challenges of our current operating context. And I'm personally, you stay there. I personally want to put a rose in the vase for Tim Rohrbeck for stepping up into the role of chair during the 2023-2024 council years. And I'm also going to put one there for his wife, Nancy, just because.
The real thanks goes to Andrea for incredible leadership, incredible patience, generosity, and it's really inspirational to be part of council that you led. I hope to do a fraction of the job that you did, and really tremendous thank you for a great year, and look forward to continuing in the Sustainable Futures role and working with you. And so everybody, please recognize Andrea.
Lovely. Thank you.
It's an honor just to be nominated.
That's right. Just the remaining ones for thanks, Tim. Just one more job. Sorry. So these represent all of those whom I haven't named. People who are in small group ministries. You're making coffee. You're having fellowship. You're meeting with the men's group. You're knitting prayer shawls. All of those things that you do, making casseroles, visiting folks. It is very much appreciated, even though we're not naming you. So thank you. Thank you for going through that. I really appreciate calling all those folks out, because it's a huge thing we're always asking for more in lots of ways, right? So it's really important to recognize folks. So in that vein, now we're going to thank the folks who are going to continue and or step up into roles going forward. If we can move to the next slide. I'm just going to introduce the nominating report. That's on pages 57 to 61 of your annual general report. There's quite a few names on there. You can see, just from doing this exercise here this morning, and if you look at that list of names, those are sort of formal ways that people are contributing their volunteer time. But there are numerous people who are stepping up to help us out. There are some important gaps still in our roster of volunteers for 2023, and as I move into the role of past chair, I'm really interested in filling those gaps, so please talk to me if you have any interest in participating on a committee or any kind of activities related to anything you see in the annual general report. I want to thank everyone who's taking on a new role or continuing in a role they've already held. The slide that you have in front of you speaks to BUC Council specifically, not just our ministry teams and committees. This describes the structure of BUC Council and names the individuals who have offered to serve in various roles. If approved in a moment, this is the group of people that will form BUC Council from the rise of this meeting today until the next AGM in 2024. I'll just wait for a moment. I know it's been up there for a few minutes to give everyone a moment to look at the slide. You'll note that there's a couple of vacancies on this slide. Those are the position of vice chair and the lead for property and administration. Those are very important gaps, and those are not I'll say they're not positions for the faint of heart either, but I am happy to talk to anyone about those roles if you have one inkling, an iota of interest at all. I want to speak to you because they are key leadership and support roles in the day-to-day functioning, both the day-to-day functioning of the church and feed into the future sustainability of BUC as an organization. So with that, as required by the United Church of Canada, the congregation is invited to nominate other individuals for any elected positions at Bedford United Church. So at this point, I'd like to call for any other nominations. For the folks who are online, I would ask you to please indicate to Lauren in the Zoom chat or Jeff in the YouTube chat if there's anyone in the sanctuary who would like to make a nomination from the floor, if you could raise your hand. Customarily we call this out 3 times, only for the purpose of making sure that we don't, that we give people ample opportunity. So I'll ask, are there any nominations from the virtual or the physical floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? I'll find you later. In that case, where there's no nominations from the floor, there was none indicated in the chat online at all. This is our 4th motion. Tim, you're going to move this one. Is moved by Tim Rohrbeck and seconded by Sarah McLean. Thank you, Sarah. That Bedford United Church accept the 2023 nominations report as circulated and printed in the 2022 AGM report on pages 57 to 61, and we had no additions of nominations made from the floor here. Could I ask people to vote yes or no for the nominations report in the AGM report? Show of hands, all those in favor of the nominations report as circulated? Any against the nominations report? Are we good? All yeses online. That motion passes. Thank you very much, everyone, for that. So just a note, as we're speaking here, guests are always welcome at council meetings. Please get in touch with Tim or the church office if you would ever like to be sent the Zoom link. We've started meeting every other in person, so sometimes we're here in the parlor and sometimes we're on Zoom. Which has been very joyful to be back together again. Next slide, please. So we're looking forward to 2024, and we'd like to set the date for the next AGM before finishing our meeting here. We're doing not too badly in terms of timing. We certainly hope that we will continue, if this worked out okay, we'll continue to offer the online and the in-person type of meeting. The date is changeable if circumstances require, but it's helpful for us to at least put it on the calendar. So Sarah is moving that we, and it's seconded by Carol McKnight. that the next AGM of Bedford United Church be held on Sunday, March 22nd, 2024. We're going to take a vote on, sorry, March 24th? What did I say? Sorry. Sorry, written down wrong in my notes. My apologies. Could we have a vote on the date for the next AGM? All those in favor? It's simply a year from today. We'll put this in the minutes. Anyone against holding it a year from today? The motion passes if we're okay online. Voting online, we're good there. And it's in gratitude that I pass the lectern over to Tim. You can just imagine. To make some closing remarks.
So it's not lost on me that I'm the only thing separating you from your lunch, so I'll be quick. My name is Tim Rarbeck. I've been coming to Buck for about 15 years, 15 to 20, with my wife and 2 children. It's been a spiritual home for certainly my wife and I. My children are teenagers and going through their own teenage journey, but for my wife and I, and well, our entire family, it's been a spiritual home. We have just discovered so many friends and sense of community here, and really feel a tremendous sense of gratitude and responsibility. I was moved by what Andrea said in terms of the meaning of stewardship. It feels like what we've talked about is that there are changes needed. It's not just a matter of holding the tiller and making sure that it keeps going straight. I think there are some changes needed, and the great thing is that we're all going to have an opportunity to have an input in that, and council is just so committed to the journey, to the faith community on which we all depend, and it's my honor to be part of that and to lead council for the next couple of years. So with that, thank you, and thank you again to Andrea for a great example of selfless leadership and patience. I aspire to, it's going to be a challenge, but anyhow, her patience and is really, really impressive, and that is one area that I will really struggle with. But so, council members who have to deal with me, in advance, I say my apologies. Remember, because we're in church, you all have an obligation to forgive me. But I plan on relying on that. Until then, namaste, and thank you.
It's going to be fun, Tim. It's going to be fun. I just want to recognize something about all these flowers over here. You know, we only all these flowers, right? And these are all people that Andrea named, and some that we didn't name, but you know who you are and you're out there. We love you and care for you. You know, one of the things that's missing from this that's hard to replicate is that what makes those flowers grow is a bulb or a seed or something that begins the growth. And for a lot of people in church, that is our Sunday school. And our Sunday school teachers have gone Herculean above and beyond to keep engagement happening, to keep kids interested, to reach out to families. And yes, Caitlin's been heading that up for Paige while she's been gone, but Lauren is one of the centerpieces in that work that we have. And so, Lauren, just thank you, and thank you to everybody who has volunteered to teach Sunday school at Bedford United Church over this time. It is tremendous. A lot of those flowers would not be there without the incredible commitment that we need to have to our youth and our children. So thank you so much.
I knew I would mess up, so thank you, Matt, for doing that with such great skill. All right, so it only remains the only thing standing between lunch is me. So you and it's you. That's right. That's right. This is our final motion of today. Having concluded the business as agreed to on the agenda of this 2023 AGM of Bedford United Church, and with thanks to Hull who made it possible, and to all of you, truly, thank you for attending this year. It is moved by Carol McKnight and seconded by Jocelyn Tingley that this meeting now be closed. Please vote yes or no. Yes? No, I'll be very surprised. Okay. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. Appreciate it. Very good.